Welcome to the Open Mic Podcast Show with Mike Midgley.
Hey, and welcome to the Open Mic Podcast. On today's episode, I'm excited to be covering the topic of igniting your brand and business. And when we look back, sometimes we all go flat. You might be watching me here on the blog and I've got my head down here, and sometimes we don't always have that motivation to get going and things like that. So having that ability to ignite your brand, build your business, and really make it happen is what we as entrepreneurs are all about. And today's influencer guest is Brandy Hollaway, the CEO and founder of the Phoenix Factor, and the founder of Girls on Fire Network. Brandy is also known as the Firestarter Mindset Coach, and she has risen from the ashes many, many times in both life and business. And we're going to learn a little bit about that because as entrepreneurs, we also have that roller coaster ride. So welcome to the show, Brandy. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited. I'm fired up to be here.
I expect nothing less. Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. And before we get started, you could search for Brandy on all the major social media channels. If you search hashtag Own Your Fire on Twitter, check out her online at The Phoenix Factor, as in Phoenix, P-H-O-E-I-N-X, phoenixfactor.com. And we're going to post all these under this video on the blog or in the app, so you got the links there. So I highly recommend that you connect. And you can search the hashtags Own Your Fire, Creating an Inferno, and Girls on Fire as well, which we're going to learn a little bit more about today. So I'm going to share a little bit more about Brandy's journey. Super interesting. There's some highs and some horrible lows in there as well. But talk to us a little bit more about that, Brandy, really. 17 years in the fitness space to start with. For entrepreneurs, whether they're in the fitness space, they're in the service business, professional, manufacturing, it's a lot of time in one space. And I'm sure you've seen that evolve over the period. What's the biggest learning curve you took from that experience? But more interesting, what I always love to learn about entrepreneurs is what was that switch that where you found, I know you say you found your true calling, but share with us what you learned and then what happened so you thought, I got to do what I want to do. I'd really love to learn
absolutely.
more about
So the women in my family growing up were not healthy. And really what spurred me to get into fitness and wellness is, I was like, I don't want to end up like this. And, it's not rocket science to eat healthy and exercise, but it's just a lot of us aren't doing that. So of course, in the beginning, I thought it was about, just motivating people to do that. And so it was really to save myself. And I've always wanted to help others excel. And, I was good at it. I was good as a fitness trainer and I got into integrative nutrition, but what I always came back to is realizing it came back to that mindset.
Yeah.
And so as I went through those years, I studied, I am a student forever. I would learn anything. You could send me to college for the rest of my life. And so as I learned, though, I really just kept leaning towards the mindset of the things, am I motivated to get out of bed every day and exercise? No, but I know it's good for me. Right. So I started pivoting, and really I opened up a wellness center. And when I say wellness center, I had a chiropractor, yoga instructors, trainers. We had a kitchen where we did healthy cooking. We had all these things.
The full spectrum. Wow.
Everything. I was 2 months pregnant with my daughter. And, life was actually great to me. It was this perfect scenario. I had a great following. I had great clients, and opened up the center, and right after my daughter was born, my life completely fell apart. 10 days old, basically, just my marriage fell apart. My daughter was 10 days old. And so I just couldn't keep it together. I couldn't keep the business going. I couldn't have everybody. I finally walked in one day and I said, you guys need to go find another job. I can't, I didn't tell them everything that was going on. They kind of
course.
And literally, it got to the point where the kids and I got evicted from our home. I ended up living with my parents. But thankfully, because of the strength really that I had found, in physically training, but also mentally training. I have some great women in my family, even though they weren't the healthiest physically, mentally, they're strong. And I got that as well. But, that's how I came up with the Phoenix Factor and to rise from the ashes and just, got to keep going. And I have 2 kiddos that are watching me, that need me.
Yeah, and the thing is, it sometimes takes that, call it whatever you want, whether it's a blessing in disguise, it's a crash and burn to actually, to get that fire going again, doesn't it? Because we do go stale. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, I spent, 11, nearly 12 years with the business, and for people who follow my stuff will know the story. We built it, we floated it, we raised capital, we franchised it nearly 70 times, made $1 million, lost $1 million, crashed in the financial crisis. But you think, and I always said, I never stay involved with a business more than 5 to 6 years. And I either totally rechange its dynamic or just go off and do something else, because probably me being me, I get a little bit bored with it. And that's, then you'll start letting your customer base down and you're not as motivated. So for me, it's like get in, do a great job. I love the build, the hunt, the stabilizing, the growth again. But then I think it's time for me to pass it on. And I learned that. I didn't realize that was in me. And, as I say, like you, we hit the ground so hard. And sometimes you just sit there with your head in your hands, you cry and grow money, crying and saying, what on earth's going off? Can't get any worse than this. You realize that there's people a lot worse than that. And you get out there and that's the motivation, isn't it, to get going with it? And so just talk to me about how you felt when you had to sort of go in and sort of say to the team, look, you got to go find jobs. Obviously, our show is all about entrepreneurs, high growth entrepreneurs. And a lot of people struggle with that. I mean, I remember we went down from 23 staff to 6 in head office, more or less overnight in the financial crash. And some of those people, one of them was my best man who, was at my wedding, people that I'd watched the kids grow up over that period. You put them under consultation, but you're thinking, unless there's a major shift, it ain't going to change, and, you hope it does, and you do everything you can to try and do that, but it doesn't always change. And I didn't sleep for the first 4 or 5 days. And then we had that day, it was a Thursday, we went in, I'm just bringing them in one after the other. And, there were personal friends, there were people who bled for the company. And I had to let them go in the worst economic crisis where there was no guarantee they were going to have a roof over their head, a job. And, it's just something that you have to do. And just tell me more about that, because I think the entrepreneurs would find that interesting, especially because there's a recession potentially. I don't want to be negative, but there's a recession potentially creeping around the corner, in the next 12, 18 months, maybe a bit earlier. I'm not predicting that, by the way, and I hope it doesn't happen. But, there's whispers about banks being put on, security warnings and various things like that. So as an entrepreneur, driving in that perfect environment, having to let your people go, how did you prepare for that? Did you just do it? Was it awful? How did you get over it?
So, of course it's awful. Even though we know we're all adults and we, as I say, own our own fire, when you have to go in and tell people that. And I feel like a majority of my group, we were family. But on the same time, for me personally, I was just in a horrible place.
Yeah.
And like I said, coming from the professional side, I wasn't going to sit and tell them my whole life story.
No.
I will say this, and especially for, anyone listening that might hit this space, is that on the flip side of that, I was really good at what I did, but then I also started to question, was I really good at business? Maybe should I have brought someone else in, because just because my personal life fell apart, it doesn't mean the business necessarily had to fall apart. Had I, looking back, that's some of the things that I definitely have put into place now. And even in collaboration, maybe you don't have to bring on a business partner, but just making sure you have someone there, because like you said, there are days, I'm all about owning my fire every day. Does that mean I do it every day? No, but I have people around me. That's what I needed then.
Yeah.
If
that infrastructure and support network in the business level more than the emotional level.
Right. Yeah. Because we just never know when, anything's going to hit us and knock us back and knock us down, and we need someone to step up. So for me, being a solopreneur for so long, even though you have staff, I didn't really have a partner or a person to depend on to really step in.
No, like succession planning, I suppose, is what you're talking, all that infrastructure. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that. And, if you're out there listening and you are struggling, just shoot us a message. Use the hashtag #TheOpenMic. leave us a comment below, reach out to Brandy. I'm sure she'll be more than happy to sort of point you in the right direction. Obviously we're not, insolvency or advisors or practitioners or anything like that. But sometimes it's just knowing that, we get messages from all over the world. We had one recently from Nigeria over the Dan Kennedy situation. Somebody who listens to the podcast, I put a post out about Dan Kennedy and his pending illness and things like that. And he reached out and he says, I didn't know what to do. And I thought I was the only person in Nigeria who looked at this. And, then I speak to people about Dan Kennedy. And he shoot us a message, listen to the podcast. And then, we started to talk about it. We were talking about old things. And he shot me a message on LinkedIn, about 2 or 3 weeks later and said, Mike, he says, that talk, he says, it really got me going. He says, I reached out to you, and not being disrespectful to the African states. Obviously, there's some amazing opportunities out there, but they see the US market, they see the European market they look up to that as, hey, this guy's a podcast host and, he interviews these people and this guy took the time. So if you have got it, reach out to us, we will do whatever we can. And my philosophy is always, if I can't help you personally, maybe I can direct you somebody, who can. And I think what we're saying is just don't sit there alone. Reach out to people and, even if it's just a little bit of free advice, it can get you over that bump, put that fire in your backside again, as we say, and get you going. And on that point, Brandy, I love your positioning of the inferno of success. And I know maybe that's not ultimately what it is. I know you've got a lot of other sort of plays on that, but I put it in my show notes. The inferno of successes, I think, is what's being used. So how did that come about? Is that just something that just came out of a strategy session? It happened, or did somebody recommend it to you, a client? Just tell us what the story is around that.
Yeah, so I've always loved to write, creatively, and I'm a wordsmith for sure. But I think for me, I needed words that really made an immediate impression, and on myself, even more so than others, because I put myself in the position of being a thought leader. So, when we were talking about branding, of course, and staying in that brand of igniting your brand, but to create an inferno of success is really kind of saying to someone, this is not you just kind of going through the day-to-day activities of, being an entrepreneur, or a business professional. What's that next thing you need to do?
Yeah.
How do you level up? So to create an inferno of success, so when you have the days that are your stale, or you have the days that things fall off, if you have an inferno of success going, your business is not going to suffer.
Yeah.
So that's where that kind of came from.
It's amazing. I love it. And, I actually released an article myself this week. It's on LinkedIn. You can, this will be aired later in the year when we release it, but it was developing your logo and strapline. And I was using McDonald's and various other sort of well-known brands as an example. And it's just interesting when you research how the straplines come in and, how people sometimes just say, I do this in their strapline. It's like, whoa. Whereas it's like, surely reposition that to how I help you achieve what you're going through. And that's exactly what that is. Who doesn't want an inferno of success? The volcano erupting and success coming out. So I absolutely loved it. So I just dropped that in. So I apologize slightly off script there.
I love it. Thank you.
But no, it's great. And I know you've made your mission to help solopreneurs create that inferno of success in the brands and also, like you say, in their network. And you niche down into this sort of health and beauty because of that natural sort of interest in that. But talk to us more about relationship marketing technique that you use to ignite those sales teams, to drive that performance.
Yeah, so of course we've all seen the saturation of social media and how it's affected business, across the board. And I choose to be on all platforms that I can be, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. And what I started seeing is, we use the word influencer as an example, and the influencers can in fact influence other businesses. If they say yay or nay about a product, and that just it got us really thinking, who should be your influencer for your business? It should be your staff. It should be your team, your sales team. They're the ones that are out there. So we just started thinking, how can you use social media to ignite people to come back to your business? Who's going to do that for you? So we wanted the sales team. How do you personally brand yourself, but you still uphold the integrity of the business, the integrity of the brand of the business. And it's just the relational marketing is stop dropping in the DMs, stop being all salesy and creepy, stop pitching. Nobody wants to be pitched. And I make it a point now, I actually do free coaching. When someone drops in my DM and pitches me, I said, hey, let me make a few suggestions on building a relationship with this person, because then you're not knocking on a cold door when you actually go to talk to them about things. You have that warm lead, you built the trust and the rapport. And, I'm always face to face. As I tell people, I can sell ice to Eskimos, but But there's also 20 million other people out there that can sell ice to Eskimos. So what makes me different? And that's that I genuinely want to build a relationship, and I try to maintain my authenticity. I don't slide around. I stay in my lane.
Yeah, that's great. Now, it's something that we are heavily involved with as well, as far as helping, being available to coach, being available to sort of build that, medium to long term. And one of the questions that I get asked on a not a regular basis, but, several times a month is, Mike, how do you feed yourself today, if you're in it for the long term? Because, I get, for example, there's a post, I interviewed Marcus Murphy from DM, Digital Marketer, a few weeks ago. And we were talking exactly about this strategy and this structure about relationships and building partnerships. We got some comments in there. We're saying that, Mike, I've got to eat today. I've got to sell today to eat today. I've got to sell today to eat today. So I've got to keep the lights on. And I suppose, we're fortunate. We have a lot of residual income or recurring income coming into the business. So I suppose as long as we maintain the core, we can then spend a lot of time coaching, educating, working on those medium to long-term relationships, which eventually then become short-term when they rise back up to the top. But I just wonder, do you get asked that a lot, or how do you deal with it when people are saying, hey guys, you're saying stop being salesy, Brandy, but I've got to sell to hit my quota? I'll just take your view on that. How do you play with that? How do you overcome that obstacle?
Yeah. And that kind of goes into mindset. That's what, when I'm working with people in their mindset, and I'm like, what does pitching your business have to do with you living and you paying your bills? And that's where that connection has been there for a long time. Because that's how a lot of us were raised. So it actually can become a limiting belief. And I get that. I was in the position of being a single mom and having to put food on the table for 2 children. I understand that. But at the same time, your business, you need to run your business now as you want it run when you are successful. You want to run it now as 10 years, and then still do what you need to do to put food on the table. But you pitching your business is typically, it's just going to become that downward spiral of constantly pitching. And I think, once again, and I'm going to use a service as an example, I don't have a tangible product to pitch, right? So when I'm out talking to someone, what's the best way for them to get curious and want to work with me? It's to build a relationship. If I'm out there saying, you should do this and you should do that, and saying all those things versus this is how I love to help people, these are my thoughts on things. And then, if you really believe in what you're doing, your passion comes through.
It does. Absolutely.
And I think that's really what sells. I think if you could just focus on being passionate instead of pitching, maybe that's a cool little tag.
That's a great tip. Absolute great tip. And, I always ask sort of guests just to sort of, and the listeners just to sort of pause, rewind 20 seconds there. What Brandy's just said there is absolute gold. Put that passion and value through there and stop pitching, because people people get attracted to that, don't they, Brandy? That, they see that passion, they see that you've got a genuine interest. And I think for me, when I thought if I could be, it's a bit like this podcast, and I know you run your podcast and you're going again and revamping that and making that better again. And you were constantly improving. And for me, it was that switch where I'm thinking, well, if I'm providing value to my audience and I can, push that out, a bit like this podcast, I see it more as a public service. And I don't think a lot of people understand the time, the effort, the money, the cost, the scheduling that goes into running and being dedicated to a podcast. It is hard work. I mean, it's the best time of the week for me. I absolutely love open mic day where I record, meet great guests like Brandy, because, I get to learn off it as well. I get to learn off people and develop my own, skills as well. But I see it as a public service. That hopefully that passion comes out. I show up week after week after week. It doesn't matter how bad a week you've had, you're there, you're motivated, and it comes through. And I think that's what people get attracted to. Nobody wants to be attracted to that, I just want you to buy, or being that miserable, sort of deflated person. And I often find that a lot of these people who are pitching all the time, but I don't know how you see it, but they're pretty flat people. They're very one-dimensional. It's like, hey, I'd like to connect with you and we should stay connected. Why? Okay, I'll connect with you. Then you know what's happening. 20 minutes later, bang! There's a 250-word pitch in there. And it's like, whoa, dude, stop, back up a little bit. And then you ask them to, and then it's like the old telephone salespeople. Oh, okay, then they slam the phone down and move on, and they don't understand that institutional damage that they're doing to that brand themselves. And if they move to another company, they may move to another company that's my biggest client. And I'm thinking, like, what did you hire that guy or gal for? They don't get it. And do you think it's systemic and culture issues at the top, or do you just think it's those people? What do you come across normally? Is it the company that's wrong, or is it the people that are wrong?
Well, I mean, someone has to be the leader. Yeah. So, I really think it does fall in the company. And that's where, we approach the decision makers and we tell them, as it is above, so it is below. I mean, you've got to set an example. This is where I think servant leadership is always important. Yeah. In any organization, because that's what we're talking about is, if you become a servant leader and you always focus on giving, it will come back. But the key to that is perseverance. I mean, you can't just start putting out value and think you're going to get a deal the next day either. You've got to push through. I mean, it's like podcasts. It takes a while for people to catch on and for, your people to find you. Everyone is not going to be your ideal client.
No, that's it. So just take us back, and I don't want to do this too much for the wrong reasons, but take us back. You got your new family, your marriage is there, you lose your home, you're back in with the parents, life's looking a little bit, less than it did. What were the steps that you took to sort of, build the Phoenix Factor and, sort of say, okay, step one, bang, step two, bang. And talk us through that process and how you sort of go, to back to the success. Because this is even though we start in a dark place, I always put a smile face because this is the rise again. And, like you said out there, Phoenix out of the ashes is amazing. So just talk us through that and fill in some of those sort of stories that entrepreneurs may be facing, and maybe throw in a few pro tips of maybe how you approached it and got over it, or some of the dead ends that you went down and said, hey, don't do that.
Yeah. So I said, I'm going to do a consulting business and start working with people in the health and wellness industry and sharing them what I know. And now that I've failed, I'm going to say, here's the things I suggest that you don't do. But, and I can kind of kill two birds with one stone for the people that are wondering, how do I put food on the table today and work on a business? That's exactly where I was. So, I had to go get a job, and I was working at a gym and, cleaning floors and toilets and waiting on people and doing things that, did I want to do that? No, but it put food on the table and got me out of my parents' house as I built the Phoenix Factor. And, this time there were a lot of things for me. I made the big decision, do not take on any overhead.
Yeah.
And then building it, I had very strong relationships. So you go right back into that relational marketing though. Regardless of anything that had happened, I maintained my relationships. And I chose to be very transparent, and then eventually, telling everyone what was going on and telling my story. And in the last 11 months, that has shifted my life in amazing ways. Amazing ways.
That's it. So, the people say your net worth is in your network. I think is it Grant Cardone who says something on that, or maybe coined it or somebody else, I'm not quite sure, but your net worth's in your network. And that is so true, isn't it? And that goes back to why you shouldn't be just pitching and burning relationships as well, which is sort of going back, but building that network. And the other thing I absolutely love, is the fact that you went back to basics. You went and said, right, I'm going to do a job to, cover the overhead or the baseline cost while I go and build. And I see so many entrepreneurs who have refused to do that for whatever reason. They won't go back to the basics. I don't know whether that's an ego or a sense of entitlement or whatever that they think it is. I don't know. But if you're there, I interviewed last year a mental health activist and a great guy called George Hodgson on the podcast. It may even been early this year. And he had major mental health problems when he was young, didn't go out of his bedroom for a couple of years, loads of panic attacks and things like that. And all the dark stuff that he used to pull out of his head, he used to do drawings, and that was his release. And so he then took all those drawings and put them on T-shirts and created a fashion brand. Now he's being interviewed on BBC and Sky, and he's big, he's sort of mental, health and mental awareness campaign in the UK, and while he's running a fashion business. But the reason why I share this story and why it's relevant to what you said there, and I share this for more of the entrepreneurs, and again, I apologize for going off script, I do this quite a bit, but it's so relevant that if you're stuck in that hole and you expect somebody just to come and give you something, or you think the only alternative is to go out there and pitch, look what Brandy did, look what George did. George works at Sainsbury's supermarkets. He gets up at 3 a.m, he clocks on at 4 a.m, and he does the 4 while, I'm not sure if it's 4 a.m while 9, or 5 while 10, or something like that in the morning. And it keeps that little bit of income in, which keeps him overhead free, keeps a little bit of cost, and it allows him to build his Mason to Shoot. Go and check out George's brand. It's masontoshoot.com. And it's an amazing story, and that's it. And, does George really want to be getting up in the small hours of the morning to go stack shelves, or, drive a forklift, or work on the checkout, whatever he's doing, in there? Probably not. He wants to be, as an entrepreneur, driving his fashion brand, raising awareness for mental health, but he's doing what it takes necessary to get that stuff done. And that's credit to him, it's credit to Brandy, and you've got to shovel that sort of dirt out to get those things going, haven't you? And what sort of time frame did that take for you, Brandy? Was that a short period that you did till you got on top of it and understood it and figured it out, or did that run on for a little bit while? Did you say 11 months before? I'm trying to remember.
So, well, I think I feel like I can say that my business is running successfully now, at this point. But when I started that, the Phoenix Factor, so it's been 2 years now.
Wow.
And a lot of people didn't know when I started it, I started Phoenix Factor, and I was living with my parents. I went to work at this gym, and, like I said, to put food on the table. I was there for about 7 months.
Yep.
To get things rolling, to start getting clientele, to figure things out. Because once again, this was a huge pivot for me to not be a trainer, not be in an actual brick and mortar place where people are walking in the door. I mean, it's my job.
Different dynamic, isn't it?
Yeah, to build these relationships. And that's actually why I started Girls on Fire Network, because I was going to these networking events and I'm like, this is lame. All we're doing is shaking hands and giving a business card and nothing's really happening. And I'm like, if I'm going to spend my time and my energy, doing something, I want to create an impact, or I want to, to find someone that can offer value to me, make it a win-win situation.
Yes,
and, I have 3 rules at Girls on Fire. We don't pass up, we don't pitch, we don't do pity parties, and we don't do comfort zones. So we just dig in and see how we can help each other.
Yeah, and I suppose that's drilling back down in the mindset, isn't it? Leave the pity party at home. Come on, we're here to get going, and let's do something positive to move forward. So absolutely love it.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people need to understand there's a difference in a pity party, and that's just, if you have something going on, talk about it. Talk to someone about it. If you have something, if you're in a dark place, talk to them. That's not a pity party. But a pity party is when you're repeating the same thing over and over and you want people to feel sorry for you.
And doing nothing about it.
Not doing anything about it. Yeah, that's a pity party.
Yeah, I love it. Well, Brandy, it's an amazing journey, and congratulations for pivoting, and congratulations for, standing firm to your beliefs. A lot of people will sort of fail at one thing and then just try do the same again and expect sort of different results, which is sort of insanity, really. But, it does take that need to change. You do have to be brave, don't you, to go out there and say, no, this is what I'm doing. And one other thing that I think is absolutely key that I'd love you to note down as a listener, it doesn't matter if you're doing $100 million, if you're just getting started. Brandy refused to accept overhead. She wanted to run lean. Now, you're doing $100 million, you're going to have staff, you're going to have various other things, you're going to have overhead, but it doesn't mean to say that you can stay away from, not be running it lean. I always sort of remember when we grew our business to just short of $20 million just before the height of the financial crash, about 12 million sterling at the conversion rate at the time. And you think, there's so much money, there's $1.5 million, nearly, $1.75 million a month coming through the till. Oh yeah, the money will never run out. Then sometimes you get a better car or have a better office, or we'll just put a new glass wall in there. And, is it needed? No. Did it make a difference? No. Did the clients care? No. Did the staff care? No. What it did, it ate away at the cash. And then when we did fall on hard times, guess what? We were short, and, we eventually lost that business. And that wasn't being mindfully wasteful. But, if you run lean, and even if you're doing super, super well, which I hope you all are, shoot us a message. Use the hashtag #TheOpenMic. Let us know how you're successful and still run a lean ship. And there's a great book out there. Go and check it out. It's Profit First by Mike Michaelis. If you can't say that or spell it like I can't, just type in Mike motorbike into Google, you'll find Mike Michalowicz. And he does a book called Profit First. And he talks about how this guy's doing really, really well. And they went through it. And then he says, hey, I need to pick up some paper at the local, Office Depot. And so he's in the car with him. He says, oh, weren't you going into Office Depot to get that paper? And he goes, oh, yeah, one more day. And he kept doing this as he were going to work every day with him. And every single day, one more day. And then eventually think, I don't need that paper. We'll probably work with it. It didn't really need it there and then. And I say this, that's credit to the guys in Profit First book. So I don't own that sort of thing. But it's that mentality that I love. That it doesn't matter how well you're doing. Do you really need it? Can you do without it? Can you afford it? Can you put it off? Can you delay the purchase? And then that's just preserving that cash flow, which keeps you running lean, which is great. And again, share the stories with us. Let us know how you're successful in running lean, or what you're going to do about it after you listen to Brandy's story, our stories, to sort of run a little bit more leaner than what you're currently doing now. And trust me, you don't have to sell any more clients. You don't have to upsell, but your bottom line starts to grow and your cash in the bank starts to move just by running a little bit leaner. So just let us know how you do with that. We'd love to hear your stories. And that's great, Brandy. I appreciate your backstory. Like most successful people, there's a rise, there's a fall, and there's a rise again. There's that common theme in them all. And I say to the listeners every week, if you're in that situation and you're at the bottom of the wheel, stick at it, get focused, run lean, and start a rebuild. It will come. Absolutely. So we're going to talk about igniting your brand and your business and how to get that going. And I suppose as we get onto that, Brandy, a little bit, we talk about content creation. I hear a lot about content strategies, content creation, what is content, all that type of stuff. In your view, how do people list this out to create awesome content strategies? What is the starting point for that?
Well, I think the thing is you really got to know your why. Yeah. Ultimately, like we said, we got back to the relational marketing, because really that's what you're doing. You're selling yourself. So you need to know your why, and you need to be very clear in that message, because that's really what you're creating your content around. And people make it really difficult. Some people are great on video, some people aren't. So, you've got to find also within that content, what type of content works for you. I love to write. I love to do videos. But, like I tell everyone, what's something that you can do every day? Can you put out videos every day? Great. If that's easy for you. Can you write something every day? Can you write a quote every day? Whatever that is. Can you put out a testimonial from a client every day? There's a lot of great ways to create a content strategy, and people make it difficult, and we make it really simple.
Yeah. So we come into your sort of Phoenix Factor, the Girls on Fire network. What is that simplification? What does it do? Because I always try to give practical solutions, and I know we're giving away a little bit of the farm here and a little bit extra value, but how do we simplify that down? What should the listeners be doing? Because people say, oh, content strategy, where do I start? My hair's on fire and all that sort of stuff. How do you simplify it, Brandy? What are you doing around that to make it easier for people?
I can make this really simple. I break it down for everyone is, why should someone work with you? Yeah. And be really crystal clear about that. Why should someone want your service, your product? What solution are you creating? What problem are you solving? And, you need to really, as I call a brain dump, meaning you just need to sit and just get all these things out of your head. And preferably really with some other fire starters around you. I have a group of women that are phenomenal, and they call it and say it like it is. So I know they're going to give me honest feedback. You've got to be in that space. And I tell everybody, so create one big piece of content, something that just you're fired up from start to finish. You're talking about your why, and just know within that content, you probably have a good 3, 4, 5 months of additional content within that.
Chop it up, dissect it down.
Yeah, you're just breaking it up. You're repurposing it. You can say thing one way, typing text into a post, and you can say it another way when you're actually speaking on a video. Yep. You can take great quotes from that and put it into Twitter. Look, Twitter is my nemesis. I don't love Twitter, but is it necessary? I think I need to have a presence on all the platforms.
Yeah, definitely. So, absolutely.
We pull our content from there. I think the biggest thing, I tell people is just start talking, just hit the button. If you're scared to do video, record it. You don't have to go live, but record it and get comfortable. Video is pretty much necessary after this year, though.
Yeah. It's got to be there. I mean, the content and the video, the consumption of video is just huge, isn't it? Especially inside the, the mobiles. But, what I really love about that as well is about the fire starters around you. You've got to be in that environment, haven't you? That positive environment to sort of do, it's difficult, I don't see many successful hermits type of thing. You got to have those people who are pushing you and, you're saying, hey, stop doing that or do that or whatever. So it's right. And it leads really into that second point, Brandy, which is about that mindset coaching. We've used the word mindset a few times on the show already. I know that's a big play for what you do and a great niche that you've gotten success with. So when you're approaching the mindset coaching, is there a point that it's right for an entrepreneur to get involved with that for them to get the best results, or does it not matter? Do you see that if an entrepreneur's at a certain point that it sticks better and they get it? Because if, sometimes when we have interviewed guests, I've had comments where people said, hey, Mike, I don't think you went deep enough for that guy. You should have asked that. Or you'll see a comment go, well, do you think you should do this? I should do that. So I'm going to go a bit deeper. If somebody sat at home thinking, mindset coaching, do I need it? Am I unconscious, incompetent here? Do I not know what I don't know? When do I need it? When's the best time, or is there not one?
I don't know that there's a best time, but there's a couple of things I'd like to say just around that mindset. I mean, we've always heard the term mastermind. There's mastermind groups, right?
Yep.
I mean, I think that's a must when you're pushing towards something, because you could hit a wall. Yeah. You could get stuck. You could have things going on. I think it's always good to have those people that you trust around you to give you that honest feedback. And a new perspective. I mean, we can only see what we see. We only know what we know. And what's really important, I think, about having a mindset coach, it's what do you not know? I tell people when they ask me, what do? I say, I ask you the questions that you're not willing to ask yourself, or you don't even know to ask yourself.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So it's not that you're doing anything right or wrong, but it's just that you're not doing things that maybe could be helping your business tremendously. And at the end of the day, I don't care what business you're in. If your mindset is not right, if you're not in a growth mindset, a success mindset, a developmental mindset, then, you're not going to grow the way that you probably thought you would, as you were dreaming things out in your vision statement.
It's a great point. I love it. And we're also getting into here, because I'm very traditional, Brandy, with business. I grew up in boardrooms and most very modern, very dynamic, and things like that. But we're talking about lost opportunity here as well, because Brandy used the terminology, you don't know what you don't know. I'm going to ask you the questions that you either don't know or won't ask yourself or don't know to ask. How, if we all were being totally honest and raised his hand, how many opportunities have we missed and then found out later that, hey, if I'd have just known what is the great saying out there, Brandy, isn't it? If I only knew then what I know now type of thing, and that's exactly, would you have turned right? And would you have opened that $1 million deal? Or would you have hired that amazing person that you decided to either not hire or let go, or not even advertise the job in the first place? And I know you can't go through life saying, looking back and saying if, buts and whats. But I think what it's doing is it's avoiding those mistakes, I suppose, Brandy, and bringing it to the present to say, hey, get those out. Some may be relevant. I'm sure that not everything is relevant, and we don't have to do everything. You might think, hey, that's a phase 2 or a phase 3, but I'm now aware about it and I'm going to start working towards it. Would you say that would be a fair assessment of that, Brandy? And is there anything else that you think that is slightly off, or you want to add to that?
Yeah, and actually, I would highly recommend two things with that. I learned this process of asking questions from, I think, one of the most amazing coaches out there. His name is Rich Litvin.
Yep.
He's on your side of the water.
He is.
And, that's the thing, is even if you just go through your day and you ask yourself the question in a safe space. I mean, I have on my mirror in my bathroom, I keep 3 questions written in a dry erase marker. Because here's the thing, you can say affirmations, I am successful, I am strong, I am all these things. But if you believed that, then you would already be there. Yep. But if you ask the question, I feel like you're really opening your brain up to an area that we don't use that often. And, as I say, allow the universe to deliver these options to you, or to deliver these people, the places, the things, and practice essentialism. Yeah. A lot of times when you're, it's a great book by Greg McKeown if you want to, really dive into that. But I would definitely say that book also changed the way that I coach, because we bring in all these trivial things that do not matter, that do not have anything to do with business, but they cloud your brain. Yeah. They affect your mindset. And you're the only one that can change that. So you really got to stick to the essentials, what's necessary for me to do business, life, or even life. How do I live my life today? What's the one thing I need to do today to get to that point 5 years from now?
Yeah, I love it. Fantastic. And I love the practice essentialism. It's a great sort of statement. And, like I say, one of the reasons why I love doing the podcast is not only it's my favorite time to learn, but you're learning all the time. And, it's a little bit of a cheeky admission here, Brandy, that I get to learn off you guys all the time as well. So I develop my own skills from people all around the world. So that's amazing. So let's talk about, you use the term called fitting out. What does that mean?
So, I think, and I think this could probably go for anyone, but as a woman, who grew up in the South here in the States in Alabama, you're raised a certain way, and it really is to fit into this mold. And I never felt right about it, never aligned with that. It obviously showed up my personality, but as I grew up and became an adult and, did start working in business, and I was always able to excel to a leadership role really quickly. And one day someone asked me, they said, how are you able to do that? Like, you can just go anywhere and you can, make this happen. I said, because I'm not scared to stand out. Yeah. So as I started my coaching and my lingo, I started saying, start fitting out instead of fitting in. Fitting in is not going to get you anywhere. Amazing. People need to see your unique gifts and talents and skill set that you have. And the only way you're going to do that is to fit out.
Yeah. So give us a couple of examples. I'm wanting to break out into entrepreneurship. I'm getting pressure from my family. Don't do it. It's too risky. I'm sure you come across some of these problems before where, should I do this? Should I do this? Or I did take the leap and I'm now in this situation. Is there some great examples of fitting out where you've come across it, where somebody's fitted out and been wildly successful, obviously outside of what you've done? Share some experiences of some of maybe the clients that's done that and maybe achieve what they didn't think they could achieve.
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, with a lot of my clients, I mean, I think it's just that goes back to the term of owning your fire. So to fit out, I mean, we see it on social media constantly. We see the person who's not as scared to use their voice, or maybe just even in your branding, it could be wearing a signature color. It could be wearing, like I know a guy I love because we resonate with each other, Jason Barnaby. He has Firestarter Tribe Circle, and he is always wearing orange, always, right? Not that that's an odd color for anyone to wear, but I mean, when you see that bright orange, he fits out. If you're in a crowd or you're at a conference and you see bright orange, who's going to stick out to you, right? It's that person. So, and I just think also another thing that makes people, like, as far as fitting out, is also just, being brave enough to say the things that we know other people are thinking, but they're not saying them. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that's amazing. And I love the standout part. And it's exactly what it is. And I think ultimately, it's a signature move. It's a signature statement. But like I say, it's about pushing yourself beyond that comfort zone. I mean, why do you think I went with this fiery red? I mean, this is a prime example. I'm actually, my natural hair color, people see my children all the time. They're dark blonde. But I was like, look, I'm going to own the Phoenix, and I want to own it in every way. And I wear a lot of red and bright blue. And I, went with the red hair because I'm like, this is how I choose to fit out. Yeah, it's amazing. Absolutely love it. And shoot us a message using the hashtag #TheOpenMic, or send one to Brandy as well with hashtag Own Your Fire. Tell us how you fit out. What are you doing that is fitting out at the moment? So, by the way, I'm going to steal that, or swipe and deploy it, as they're probably in the statement. And I'm going to start fitting out as well. I'm not quite sure I'd get away with the red hair in my job, but it's awesome. So when we talk about, as the entrepreneurs here, we all hit obstacles. We all sort of feel that the world's pushing back against us, and for whatever reason, things just don't sometimes click for us to make that progress moving forward. How can entrepreneurs today get started and burn through those obstacles and overcome those limiting beliefs that they have? Because I think that once they make that step, isn't it, it becomes a bit easier. But how can they get going with that and overcome those limiting beliefs? And I know we've used mindset before, but share with us a few more examples. I think I think the biggest thing you can do is just start by, once again, practicing essentialism is the one thing. And of course, that's another book that I love, but what's one thing, instead of overwhelming yourself thinking, how often you come home, for example, and say, I've had a horrible day, right? And I ask clients and I say, did you really have a horrible day, or did you have a moment, that didn't work out, something bad happened? And then, be proactive versus reactive. What's something that you can do next time this situation comes up? How are you going to react? How are you going to handle it? Can you diffuse the situation, beforehand? And if it's something really personal, maybe not professional, that you're going through, that you need to burn through, obviously having a great support system, once again, just being around the right people. Your family, unfortunately, is not always going to be that person. I find a lot of entrepreneurs like myself love my family dearly, but they don't understand what we're doing. And when you're really pushing to burn through limiting beliefs, where did you learn most of those?
Yeah, and the family. And sometimes they can be your biggest enemy, can't they? They love you to death, but they're actually holding you back or suffocating you, or they're being unnecessarily critical that knocks that confidence. And, I suffered that in my early 20s as well, and had to break away and physically walked away. I've not spoken to my mother for 25 years, and I had to break that chain and break that cycle to go out, because I never felt, did I want to do that? Definitely not. And you might say, hey, Mike, that's too big a price to pay. Maybe, but, I had got that, I didn't probably classify it as that point, but I had that fire, as Brandy's talking about here, and I knew I could be something better. But I had this insular sort of family relationship that was negative mindset, that find the negative in everything and give me every reason why I couldn't, why I shouldn't make something of my life. And I thought, well, this is my life. I don't want to end up like you guys. I know you said about the well-being and the fitness, and, they were great people, but maybe weren't that healthy. And it was the same for me psychologically. I just wanted to get away, and, getting away, and then sort of the career built from there when you get that purpose and that clarity of mind, for sure. And, I think, those limiting beliefs, they are just in your head, aren't they? And, is there another way that people, can they get it out? Can they mind map it? Can they make 3 reasons why they can't do it? Is there any strategies like that people can adopt to sort of say, I want to do it, but I don't know how? And, I know we've covered a few of them, but I'm just trying to dig a bit deeper. I've got all these things in front of me, but I still don't seem to be able to make it happen. How do they get started with that? Or how do they break through it, I suppose, is what I'm really trying to get to.
So I have a really, really simple way to break through this. And I would ask my question to finish this sentence. I can't do this because.
Brilliant. Love it.
Whatever follows because is your limiting belief.
Yeah.
And then you go into kind of just peeling the onion, as we say. Keep going beyond the because, and you'll get to a point where you find the one thing that you really need to focus on to move forward. And, the thing is, we all react and make decisions based on 2 very specific things: a need of acceptance and a fear of rejection. So if you really can, grasp that and understand, this is how I'm making my decision. So I'm going to be brave today.
Yeah.
If you fail, it's a learning lesson. If you fall, you get up. I mean, I say it simply now because I've done it so many times. It Right? But when it's your first time, it's scary. A lot of people, I want to start a business, but what if I fail? Okay, what if you do? Then what? You
learn from it. You go on again, don't you?
Yeah. So it's kind of, you got to move beyond whatever that moment that you're having that belief that's stopping you saying, I want to do this, but I don't know how, or I want to do this, but I can't because, you've got to just at least walk yourself through that mindset. Like, what's going to happen after that? In your mind, what do you think? Because worrying is focusing on what you don't want. And if you can get rid of that worry and then move on to what you do want, you'll start doing the things
Absolutely.
That you do.
Yeah, amazing. And, again, if you're at that point, just reach out to Brandy. We'll post all Brandy's links there, but head over to www.thephoenixfactor.com. We'll stick those links in the show notes. Connect with Brandy on social and just reach out to her. And, this is what Brandy does. She's going there to help you. And, if you just want to sort of have a chat, I'm sure, there's a process that Brandy can take you through to see if there's something that she can help you with. So head over to thephoenixfactor.com and just get started and do it today. Don't put it off tomorrow. There's a great saying by Jim Rohn: what is the best time to do something? And Jim would say, of course, 10 years ago. But, we can't do it 10 years ago. So guess when the next best time is to do something? right now. So you're stuck with anything, get on with it. Drop what you're doing. It's probably insignificant unless your hair's on fire, and go out there and do it now and make that start. Trust me, you'll feel a lot better. Brandy, as we're wrapping out of the show, I love speaking to you. It's been amazing. We've used the word mindset, success, fire, all that sort of stuff. But honest question, what does mindset mean to you? And, because it's different to everybody, isn't it? And, how can listeners adopt that mindset to success? And, outside of reaching out to you, and what does it actually mean? And, how do we get started with it? Because like you say, you don't sell a tangible service sometimes. And, I suffer that myself. I sit on boards and do non-exec services. And, there's not a box that arrives with a smiley face like Amazon, and there's no tangible value apart from the value you deliver and things like that. But, as being in this space, having been up on the highs of the peaks and the lows of the valleys, talk me through how you see it. How do you get started? All that sort of success mindset. What does it mean? And what's the other side of it once you break through?
I think having a success mindset. I mean, there's many different types of mindset.
Yeah.
As you said, it's an umbrella term.
Yeah.
But what I think what I would want everyone to understand what mindset means is the ability to really question everything from a growth standpoint, right?
Yeah.
From a positive standpoint. And if you can't answer that question honestly and authentically, that you seek the people, places, and things that you can do that. And that's what's going to get you into, a success mindset. So, too many of us are ignoring things. We're in denial. We just think we're unlucky. We think, the limiting beliefs about money. My family was poor, always poor, came from nothing. It's just all those things that you're telling yourself you're in a poor mindset or a scarcity mindset. So you got to start questioning those things and finding the answers.
Yeah, brilliant. And, people are fearful to do that sometimes, aren't they? But you just got to face it and get on with it. And like I say, I think it's also those little reminders as well. I love the example earlier where you said you've written the questions instead of the affirmation statements on the dry marker on the mirror. You're actually challenging yourself to be there. It's just those little things, isn't it? And going forward and, not dreaming out of abundance for unreality, but set yourself high goals. What's the worst thing that could happen? You could fall a little bit short, and you still probably achieve more than you would do if you're sort of thinking like that average mindset. Who wants an average mindset? You don't want that. I certainly don't want it. I want to develop. One of the things that Brandy said at the top of the show, she'd go to college for the rest of her life. She's always learning, building that type of stuff up, and you've got to put the hours in, and you go from there. So that's amazing. And so what's the best, is the website the best place that people can reach you, Brandy? Is it, or is there a would you prefer to reach out on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter? I know you said your nemesis and things like that, but is there a preferred channel that people can reach out to you on, or is it through the web?
I feel like if you want to engage and have some conversation and really jump into things, Instagram and LinkedIn are definitely my go-tos.
Yeah.
If they're looking for, real help as far as me working in one-on-one, obviously the website gives a lot of information on what I do and how we do that. But I am always up for a conversation. I'm always up to listen. This is Mental Health Awareness Month, especially this month. I remind everyone, I have much deeper, darker places I've been than the story I told here.
Yeah, so, I'm aware.
There's no judgment. I just tell people reach out, and sometimes it's actually helpful to reach out to a stranger and be able to tell things and just, let everything out and not worry about what your friends or your family are going to say about your dreams, your aspirations. And I love engaging.
Yeah, that's great. I really appreciate that offer as well to the listeners. So, if you go over to LinkedIn, you can search Brandy Hollaway. Again, we'll put that link before, or search Phoenix Factor. And Instagram handle at Brandy_Holla_way, or at Girls on Fire Network, or at the _Phoenix_Factor. So let's do that. But if you're serious about getting started, head over to thephoenixfactor.com, set up a call with Brandy, and start moving from there. Brandy, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I think the value you provided is tremendous. It certainly woke me up, and I'm just gutted. It's here in the UK. I know it's a little bit earlier for you in the States. It's closing out. I'm at the end of the weekend, so I'm going into a weekend where I need to be going out there and doing it. So it's been amazing. If we were to summarize igniting your brand and your business into sort of 3 pro tips, how could you, it's so much value, but how could you condense that down into 3 sort of tips that the listeners can take forward and apply straight in the business and into themselves today?
I think the first thing that you have to do before you do anything in business is have a clear niche, a clear message.
Yeah.
Very clear so that people know what they can get, what you're delivering.
Yeah.
The second thing by far I see that leads to failure is not being consistent.
Yeah.
Be very consistent, persevere, push through, just those. And number three, I think for me, especially, I'm speaking from personal experience, no matter where you are in your business, is having at least that one mentor, that one person that's really going to give you the absolute honest feedback. Make sure they've been there, make sure they've been in that arena. Don't ask people for advice that have never done what you're doing or, understand. But for me, that was a huge pivot. I think getting that mentor that could say, look, this is where I'm seeing a crack and that needs to be filled in your business.
Yeah, it's amazing. And one thing there, as I say, when there's something fundamental that comes out that is so valuable, I always ask you to rewind the tape 20 seconds, or tape or digital audio these days. And that is, make sure they've walked a mile in the shoes that you're at, or at least a mile, because that is so important. Otherwise, why would you ask somebody about how to deal with situations when they've never been there? And there's so many people out there who are proclaimed to sort of help you, who have never done it. They don't understand it. They've never been in your shoes. So that, for me, Brandy, is absolute gold. Thank you for sharing that, because, when you've been in that situation, you can relate to it. You can either, share with that person, either reassure them that that's the right track that they're trying to get back on, it's a little bit like asking the blind man for directions. There is a feel the way out of it, and they can guess and hope, but sometimes, you're going to hit some dead ends. Whereas, the person who's walked that mile, walked through the minefield and survived is the person to go. So get that mentor who's actually walked a mile in your shoes. Absolute phenomenal advice, Brandy. That's so kind of you sharing that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So we hope you've enjoyed it, and we hope you've given some inspiration to sort of put that fire up your backside and get that ignited, into your brand and your business. Don't forget to check out all the amazing work that Brandy and the team are doing at thephoenixfactor.com, or check her out on LinkedIn or Instagram with the links below. And it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for being on the show, sharing so much value with you. It's amazing. I really appreciate it today.
Thank you. Thank you. Very honored. I really appreciate it.
No, it's absolutely fine. And of course, to the listeners, thanks for the time that you've taken to spend listening to the open mic. We know you've got a lot of choice on the podcast channels at the moment. We appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate your loyalty. And as always, to get in the game, go do the hustle, go make it happen. And we're going to catch up with you on the next open mic podcast show real soon. Have a great week, guys.
You have been listening to The Open Mic, brought to you by The Success Hub. To find out more and to get the resources we have mentioned in this podcast episode, simply visit blog.thesuccesshub.io and view the podcast section. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to catching up with you in our next episode. This podcast and associated materials is published under copyright to The Success Hub. All rights reserved. No reproduction of this material is permitted.